In the court of the Zyr'ark Dominion, the hall echoed with the soft shuffling of feet, whispers and the murmur of voices both alien and human. Keegan Hale, a sturdy man, with grizzled hair and a lean build honed from years of planetary expeditions, stood in the center of a room far larger than any human-made structure he'd ever seen. It was a grand chamber of slate-blue crystal that reached high into alien skies, filled with Zyr'ark elites, their slender bodies shrouded in rich indigo and emerald robes. The Zyr'ark had only recently opened diplomatic ties with humanity, and Keegan was one of the first representatives sent to make an impression. Keegan adjusted his grip on the leash, attached to a collar around the neck of his Maneater, a creature that had already attracted the court's uneasy gaze. It was a cat. Well, to Keegan she was more than that. Named Violet, the Norwegian forest cat had been his loyal companion since he'd been stationed on the planet Dolara 3, where he'd found her as a kitten. She had grown into a large, imposing feline with dense, bushy fur, vibrant green eyes, and an unwavering gaze that could hold even the fiercest predator at bay. But here, in the Zyr'ark Dominion, Violet had quickly drawn suspicion and fear. The Zyr'ark, who themselves resembled elongated praying mantises with 4 shimmering eyes and sleek, insectoid limbs, seemed particularly wary of anything with claws and teeth. A tall Zyr'ark with a crest of black feathers stepped forward. He wore a delicate golden circlet on his head and exuded an aura of quiet authority. This was High Consul Maldrak, ruler of the Zyr'ark Dominion and one of the most powerful beings in the galactic sector. Human Representative Keegan Hale Maldrak began, his voice a smooth resonance that somehow managed to carry across the vast hall. I would inquire as to the creature you hold by a tether, your Maneater. He tilted his head, a motion that might have been curiosity or disdain. We were informed humans are not known for keeping dangerous beasts as companions. Keegan resisted the urge to laugh, knowing it would only deepen their misgivings. High Consul Maldrak, she's not a Maneater. This is Violet, she's just a cat. Harmless, a companion, not a predator. Several of the courtiers exchanged glances, their antennae twitching with what Keegan assumed was nervous confusion. The Zyr'ark did not keep pets. They viewed the idea of willingly bringing another creature into one's life as primitive and risky. But this moment wasn't just about introducing them to human customs, it was a test of respect and diplomacy. Maldrak's 4 eyes narrowed. Harmless, you say. It is a strange practice, bringing such a creature into court. We are unfamiliar with cats. She's intelligent, observant, Keegan said, ignoring the doubtful muttering that spread across the hall. She saved my life more times than I can count. Her instincts have proven more reliable than many high-tech sensors. The room quieted, and Maldrak stared at Violet, whose green eyes held his gaze unblinkingly. Keegan could feel her tension. She wasn't one to take disrespect lightly, and in her feline way she could sense the cautious, even hostile, attention directed at her. Suddenly, a courtier in elaborate yellow robes, a Zyr'ark named Toresh, sneered. We know humans have a peculiar fondness for pets, but does it not seem foolish to rely on something so small? She's got more courage than most beings I've met, Keegan shot back. He could feel the heat of the court's scrutiny. It was a dance, a challenge to defend his customs without appearing weak. Let me show you. Before anyone could protest, Keegan unclipped the leash, allowing Violet to sit freely at his feet. The Zyr'ark court gasped, some of them recoiling slightly, their spindly limbs drawing close to their bodies. Observe her closely, High Consul Keegan said, his voice low but steady. Look into her eyes and tell me if this is a mere animal. Maldrak leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Violet stared back, eyes bright and intent, a deep, knowing intelligence visible in her gaze. Keegan knew that gaze well. It was the one she had given him during countless nights on Dolara 3, as they had camped out in the wilderness, listening to the strange creatures howl and shriek in the darkness. Maldrak exhaled a chittering sound, an involuntary reaction among the Zyr'ark that indicated surprise. She studies me. Toresh rolled his eyes. The human has trained his creature to stare. This is no display of skill or intelligence. I could easily command a Celter beast to obey with proper training. Could your Celter beast sense an ambush before your sensors do? Keegan countered. On Dalera 3, Violet detected threats from miles away. She has an awareness that no machine can replicate. There was a sudden sharp crack from one corner of the room. A murmur spread as a tall, heavily armored Zyr'ark soldier entered the court. His gleaming exoskeleton bore the mark of the High Guard, and he carried a strange, ornate staff that Keegan knew to be a traditional weapon of their elite warriors. Honored guard Darvok Maldrak addressed the soldier, whose height loomed even over him. "You come in the midst of a peculiar display by our human guest." Darvok's eyes settled on Keegan with an unreadable expression. "I was called because of the presence of a suspected threat," he said, his gaze flickering down to Violet. "My sensors indicated an anomalous heat signature from the creature." Keegan let out a short laugh. "Darvok, that's just her purring. She's probably annoyed with the constant staring." But Darvok did not look amused. He narrowed his eyes at Keegan. If it is merely purring, perhaps it would not mind a brief demonstration of its harmlessness. Keegan's instincts flared, but he kept his face neutral. "Of course. She's not here to harm anyone. Look, Violet is just as calm as." Darvok moved suddenly, aiming his staff at Violet with a subtle but unmistakable intent. His free hand flicked in a complex pattern, activating a latent energy field around the staff's tip, which sparked with a faint, lethal glow. He tilted it forward as if to prod Violet with it, and Keegan barely had time to react. Violet let out a low growl that surprised even him. Her fur bristled, and she swiped at Darvok's weapon, her claws clinking against the staff with a sound that echoed in the vast hall. Darvok staggered back, a look of genuine shock crossing his face as Violet leapt back beside Keegan, her stance unmistakably protective. Gasps erupted across the court. Maldrak raised a hand to still the alarmed crowd. "You see," Keegan said calmly, though his heart raced, "she's no ordinary companion. But she won't attack unless she's provoked." Darvok narrowed his gaze. "You are quick to excuse it, human, but I have seen creatures with lesser intent turn deadly." Maldrak's expression remained enigmatic. This Maneater, as you call it, Violet, did it not react with what you would call loyalty? "Yes," High Consul Keegan replied. "She sensed danger and reacted to protect me, just as she has done on countless planets. Loyalty is something we value." The room seemed to buzz with a mix of wonder and suspicion. Teresh stepped forward again, his expression a careful mask of skepticism. "And would this loyalty extend beyond your own kin, Keegan Hale? I find it difficult to believe any being so primitive could display genuine fealty." Keegan knelt, brushing his hand down Violet's back as she settled. "If you don't believe it, we could test it, but I'd advise you to keep any weapon aimed away from her." Teresh sneered, but Maldrak silenced him with a raised hand. "Teresh, I would have you observe, not provoke." The High Consul's tone softened as he looked back to Keegan. "We Zyr'ark do not know of loyalty in this sense. Ours is a culture of mutual respect but calculated trust." Keegan nodded. "In that case, maybe it's time for a demonstration, a test, if you're willing. Something to show Violet's intelligence and loyalty." Teresh scoffed. "What could such a creature do that would impress us?" Keegan leaned forward, his gaze steady. "A trial, a challenge that would allow Violet to navigate something unfamiliar. If she succeeds, she earns your respect. If she fails, I'll acknowledge her as merely a beast." Darvok's eyes gleamed with a glint of interest, and Maldrak regarded Keegan with the ghost of a smile. "Very well," the High Consul said, a murmur spreading through the court. "There is a chamber in the lower levels of Labyrinth known for testing the agility and cunning of our finest warriors." Teresh scoffed again, this time with a gleeful edge. "The beast walk," he said with thinly veiled anticipation. "A perfect place for this demonstration, High Consul." Violet, sensing the attention, stretched her paws as if she, too, was up to the challenge. Keegan felt a pang of apprehension but nodded. "Lead the way." The descent to the beast walk was marked by a sharp drop in temperature, the cool stone walls radiating an unsettling chill. Torches lined the corridor, and Zyr'ark warriors, officials, and curious onlookers formed a procession as Keegan and Violet followed Maldrak to the entrance of the labyrinth. Inside, the walls were high and shadowed, adorned with pulsing blue lights that cast eerie patterns across the floor. The maze was lined with narrow passages, sharp turns, and concealed traps, an environment designed to test wit and resilience. The goal, Muldrak explained, gesturing with one spindly hand, is to reach the central chamber, retrieve a marked object, and return without falling prey to the traps or hazards within. Violet gave the Zyr'ark leaders a look that almost seemed to say, "That's it?" Toresh sneered. "Such overconfidence will prove its undoing. The Beast Walk is no place for pampered creatures." Keegan gave Violet a reassuring scratch behind her ears. "You've got this, girl," he murmured, and she gave a determined flick of her tail. Muldrak motioned for the guards to open the labyrinth's heavy gate, which creaked open with a groan of ancient stone. "We will observe from above," he announced, "and we shall see if this human companion is truly worthy." With a final nod, Keegan released Violet into the labyrinth. She trotted in with graceful, calculated steps, her fur brushing lightly against the walls as she navigated the shadows. Keegan followed her progress from a raised platform where the Zyr'ark officials watched in silence. Violet moved quickly but cautiously, ears perked and eyes sharp. Her sense of awareness guided her in a way that seemed almost supernatural. She'd pause at corners, sniffing the air before darting around each twist. She seemed to detect each tripwire, each pressure-activated floor plate, and skirted them with astonishing precision. Toresh, standing next to Keegan, hissed under his breath, "It's avoiding the traps." Keegan corrected coolly, "Her name is Violet." "Whatever it is," Toresh muttered, "the Beast Walk is known for its unpredictability. One misstep, and you're dead." In the distance, a faint click echoed through the chamber. Violet froze, her fur standing on end as a trapdoor opened just ahead of her, revealing a pit lined with writhing metal tendrils. The crowd gasped, watching with bated breath as Violet, eyes narrowed, calculated her next move. She backed up, coiling her muscles, and in one fluid leap, cleared the pit and landed safely on the other side. Keegan's heart swelled with pride. He glanced at the gathered Zyr'ark, who watched in silence, their expressions shifting from skepticism to awe. Muldrak leaned forward, his many eyes glistening. Remarkable. She did not merely evade, she anticipated. Violet continued through the labyrinth with the same cautious precision, deftly avoiding each hidden threat. Finally, she reached the central chamber, where a small crystalline object rested on a pedestal. She approached it cautiously, sniffing the air around it before reaching up to tap it with her paw. Another trap activated, a volley of sharp darts shot from the walls, aimed directly at her. With a fierce hiss, Violet ducked low, darting away and narrowly avoiding each projectile with breathtaking speed. The crowd erupted in a mixture of gasps and murmurs. Violet darted around the pedestal, nimbly avoiding the traps as she figured out how to retrieve the crystal object without triggering more defenses. She circled it with her tail swishing low, clearly assessing every angle with an intelligence that even the High Consul couldn't deny. After a moment's pause, she reached up with one paw, delicately hooking the crystal with a claw. In one swift movement, she scooped it off the pedestal and darted back the way she had come, clutching the crystal between her teeth as she ran. The Zyr'ark onlookers gasped in unison as Violet began her return journey. The traps now seemed even more active, as if the labyrinth itself sensed her progress. With each twist and turn, additional obstacles sprang up, spiked barriers, shifting floor tiles, and columns of dense, choking smoke that made navigation almost impossible. But Violet showed no sign of faltering. Her instincts kicked in as she sprinted forward, crouching low to slip under a razor-thin barrier before leaping over another pit, her paws landing soundlessly on the other side. Even Keegan couldn't help but hold his breath. He knew she was skilled, but this was a test unlike any they'd faced before. As she reached the final passageway, a thick mesh of energy fields sprang up, blocking her path. Violet paused, crouching as her pupils dilated, measuring the energy fields. She seemed to take a moment to calculate her options, her body tensed and ready. "That will be the end of it," Toresh muttered, half smiling as he observed the complex series of barriers. Even the finest warriors have difficulty bypassing the final defenses. but Keegan simply crossed his arms, a confident smirk playing on his face. Don't underestimate her. Just as he finished speaking, Violet surged forward, weaving between the fluctuating energy fields with astonishing agility. She leaped, twisted, and ducked through the maze of light, and then, with a final bound, she cleared the last energy field and skidded to a halt in front of the entrance where Keegan waited. Violet dropped the crystal at his feet, then sat, her tail flicking with satisfaction. The silence that followed was electric. The Zyr'ark courtiers stood in open-mouthed awe. Even Toresh, usually unflappable in his disdain, stared at Violet as though seeing her and Keegan in an entirely new light. The High Consul stepped forward, his antennae quivering as he looked from the crystal to Violet and then to Keegan. Extraordinary Maldrak said, his voice barely a whisper. This companion of yours has accomplished a feat that only a handful of our elite warriors can claim. Keegan couldn't resist giving Violet an approving scratch behind her ears. As I said, she's loyal and sharp as they come. Darvok, the warrior who had earlier doubted Violet's harmlessness, approached with a respectful nod. It is clear I was mistaken in my judgment, Keegan Hale. This creature, this cat, possesses qualities rare even among our most intelligent life forms. Thank you, Keegan said, his tone firm yet humble. She's a reflection of what humanity values: adaptability, intelligence, and loyalty. Maldrak raised a hand, calling for the attention of the court. It appears we have underestimated the bond between human and cat. He tilted his head in an alien approximation of a bow. Keegan Hale, you and your companion have not only demonstrated skill but have reminded us of the strength that lies in connection and trust. Just as Keegan was about to respond, a loud metallic rumble echoed through the chamber. The Zyr'ark all turned in alarm as an imposing figure stepped into the hall. He was clad in pitch-black armor, his frame massive, even by Zyr'ark standards, and his eyes glowed a dark red. This was Grak, a feared warlord from a neighboring faction known for his ruthless conquests and a personal vendetta against Maldrak's dominion. Maldrak Grak's voice boomed through the hall, dripping with disdain. I came seeking a worthy challenge, but I see you have been playing games with lesser beings and their pets. The entire court tensed, the previously celebratory atmosphere evaporating as Grak's warriors, equally formidable, lined up behind him. Each one held weapons charged with dark energy, their gaze sweeping over the courtiers with menacing intent. Maldrak straightened, his composure steady despite the sudden intrusion. Warlord Grak, you violate the sanctity of this court. State your purpose or be removed by force. Grak sneered. Force? I have seen your guards, Maldrak. They are weak, as is your entire court. His eyes landed on Keegan and Violet with a glint of malicious amusement. And this is the so-called human envoy you have summoned. Truly, you have become desperate. Keegan met Grak's stare, unflinching. He could feel Violet tense beside him, her eyes narrowing in a predatory gleam. While she had just completed the beast walk, she seemed invigorated rather than weary, her gaze fixed on the warlord with almost eerie focus. This is a diplomatic court, Grak Keegan said, his voice steady. If you came here to challenge, then face Maldrak's warriors in honorable combat. There's no need to threaten those here in peace. Grak laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Honor? A human speaks to me of honor. He took a step forward, towering over Keegan, his armored form casting a long shadow across the hall. I could crush you and your beast in an instant. Violet let out a low, guttural hiss, the sound sending a ripple of discomfort through the court. The Zyr'ark weren't used to animals displaying such defiance, and seeing a creature as small as Violet challenge Grak was something none of them had ever expected. Do you think that mere beast could stand against me? Grak mocked, reaching out as if to flick her away. Keegan's instincts flared. I wouldn't do that, he warned, his hand subtly tightening on the hilt of his own weapon. You underestimate her and me at your own risk. Grak laughed again, leaning down as if daring Violet to attack. But as his armored hand came within striking distance, Violet struck, faster than even Keegan anticipated. With a swift, lethal swipe, she slashed at the exposed joints of Grak's armor, her claws sinking in with surprising force. Grak recoiled, clearly not expecting any creature of Violet's size to penetrate his defenses. He stumbled back, his eyes flashing with fury. "What trickery is this?" Grax snarled, clutching his arm, where a thin line of blood had seeped through the armor's gap. Keegan felt the court's collective surprise as he met Grax's enraged gaze. It's not trickery, it's her nature. Violet protects those she cares about. Something you'd do well to remember. Grax growled, clearly humiliated. He swung his massive fist down toward Keegan and Violet, but this time Keegan was ready. He dodged to the side, drawing his plasma dagger, while Violet slipped under Grax's legs with feline grace, avoiding his attack with ease. She shot back up, launching herself at his back, her claws finding purchase as she scaled him with startling agility. As Violet latched onto Grax's shoulders, he staggered, struggling to shake her off. Keegan took the opportunity, moving swiftly to aim his dagger toward the exposed back of Grax's knee joint, where the armor plating was thin. With a precise thrust, he struck, and Grax dropped to one knee, roaring in pain and fury. Darvok and several of the Zyr'ark guards rushed forward, but Maldrak raised a hand. "Hold," he commanded, his gaze fixed on Keegan and Violet, the corner of his mouth twitching in what looked almost like a smile. "This is their battle." Grax's warriors looked unsure, their hands hovering over their weapons, but none dared move without their leader's command. Grax, humiliated and furious, managed to twist, dislodging Violet from his back. She landed lightly on her paws, her fur bristling as she hissed at him, her green eyes bright and fierce. "You will regret this," human Grax spat, glaring at Keegan. Keegan stepped forward, his voice cold. "You came here seeking to intimidate, but what you found was resistance. We humans may not look like much to you, but we don't back down." Grax sneered, attempting to rise, but his injured knee buckled. "You think this animal and your primitive skills have won you any favor?" he spat, glancing at Maldrak. "This is the dominion you keep, Maldrak, allowing outsiders to mock your authority." Maldrak stepped forward, his gaze steely as he addressed Grax. "Warlord, it seems the only one mocking our authority here is you. But even the smallest creatures in this universe can hold power when treated with respect." He inclined his head toward Keegan. Today, a human and his Maneater showed the true strength of loyalty and courage. The court erupted in applause, an uncharacteristic display for the Zyr'ark, who rarely expressed emotion so openly. But the message was clear: the court had sided with Keegan and Violet. Grax, seeing his standing diminish, scowled, his red eyes flashing. "This isn't over," he growled, pushing himself to his feet. "I'll be back, and when I return, your dominion will not be able to hide behind its pets." With a gesture to his warriors, Grax turned and stormed out of the hall, his bruised pride palpable as he limped toward the exit. His followers filed out in silence, their presence replaced by a renewed atmosphere of awe directed at Keegan and Violet. Once the warlord had left, Maldrak approached Keegan, his expression unreadable. "You have earned not only our respect but something far greater. Keegan, hail." Toresh Maldrak turned to the once skeptical courtier, whose face had softened into a look of reluctant admiration. Toresh gave a deep bow. The human and his companion are honored allies of the Dominion. Keegan exhaled, a sense of relief finally settling over him. He looked down at Violet, who was grooming herself with nonchalant pride, clearly satisfied with her performance. She was already the hero of the hour, though to her, it was likely just another well-earned victory. The High Consul raised his hand for silence once more. "Keegan, hail, in honor of this day, we invite you to join our ranks as an honored emissary. And your Maneater, your cat, she too, shall be recognized as an ally of the Dominion." Keegan smiled, looking around at the gathered Zyr'ark, their former skepticism replaced with genuine respect. "Thank you, High Consul. It would be an honor." As the court applauded, Keegan knelt beside Violet, giving her a gentle scratch under her chin. "We did it, girl," he murmured. She blinked up at him, and for a moment he could have sworn she winked. The doors of the chamber closed behind them, the triumph ringing in their wake. Together, man and cat had not only won the court's respect, they had changed it.